What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Today we're talking finance here. I've got with me Anthony Crincoli from Common Sense Finance. I am your host, Anthony Peltier from Coast to Coast Finance. We're just going to be talking about some general finance topics, investing, budgeting, how to get started taking control of your finances. So Anthony, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about Common Sense and what you're about.
For sure. So I'm currently a college student. I'm from like the New York, New Jersey area. Go to a very small school, majoring in accounting and finance. I am planning graduate in the next few months. I have a job lined up with a public accounting firm, KPMG. So that's, as you can see, like my career and my interests kind of align with one another. They're pretty much one and the same. When I was a sophomore, I launched Common Sense Finance as a website, as a blog, because I thought, I always felt I was a good writer. It was easy for me. I loved finance, and I was like, why not try to monetize it, take advantage of it?
Yeah.
I think I was speaking with you about this off the record. I kind of jumped into it without having a plan. I think it kind of was like, I don't know. I was very naive, thinking like, oh, I can make some money off of this. People will read my articles, and it's like, if people don't know who you are, they don't even know you're writing, they're not gonna have an interest in reading articles. So
yeah,
I think that was the biggest mistake, but it was a learning lesson. So now I'm trying to build the platform. So this year I've really committed to building it as much as I can. So my Instagram, I've been focusing on that. I've been focusing on my podcast. I've focused more on that. And then I'm trying to grow it from there. So that's where we are today.
nice. So you mentioned the podcast, and I had a chance to check out a couple episodes. I know you've had some big names on there, like ex JP Morgan bankers. What should people know about the podcast if they go check it out?
Yeah, so it's the Common Sense Finance podcast. It's available on all podcasting platforms. And it's my friend, my classmate, and I, Nick, and we just discuss various financial topics on a weekly basis. So we have episodes coming out this week, just us two. We're discussing the recent earnings reports of some of the big tech companies like Netflix and Amazon. But we also have a lot of interviews. So we kind of leverage our networks within our school's campus, and we've been able to speak with a number of interesting individuals about their experiences, their work experience. Like one of the next upcoming episodes we have is he's in charge of an esports conference in our region, and he gets into the economics of esports. And I feel like you get to learn a lot of different topics from people who have expertise in the field. And I think I've learned a lot from speaking to individuals. I think it's very interesting. So if that stuff interests you, you can feel free to check it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that's huge for people that are following you to be able to get that connection into the personal finance world. Is there anyone like you look up to as a mentor, or maybe any like really good finance books you've read that kind of got you started down this path?
Sure. So finance. So I think I actually have it right here. So I read a book. I have it right here. Actually, it's by Ken Langone. He's the CEO and one of the founders of Home Depot. And I think when we are like into college, I think we're always pushed like this entrepreneurial mindset. Like if you listen to guys like Gary Vee and things like that, they're always telling like hustle, hustle, hustle. You don't want to get stuck working a 9 to 5. You want to make a name for yourself. Don't have a boss, be your own boss. And I think many people have they adopt this mindset, and they're very optimistic thinkers where they're like, oh, well, I can graduate from school and I can be completely successful in anything I do. And that might be the case, but people should not feel discouraged if they have to work somewhere first before they make a name for themselves somewhere else. And in this book, I believe he was a stockbroker. He was brokering deals for clients for 10 to 15 years before he even was investing into the startup of Home Depot. So I think that really opened my eyes to be like, okay, I have a career. Like I can start a career with a company, build a name for myself, and then venture and branch off out of that. So I think that was a very good read. I don't think a lot of people know about that book, so I wanted to give that one. It's more of like a memoir about his life. Another good book I think is, the name's thrown around all the time, but I think it's very, it meets the hype in my opinion, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
I actually read
Yeah.
it over the past year, and I was like, I have a basic understanding of personal finance at this point, and I was like, okay, this book has to be either like, I thought the book would be either for like basic beginners and I wouldn't get anything out of it, or
Yeah.
I would miss the mark. But it met the mark for me, and I would recommend anyone to read that book if they think that
Yeah. And
like they want to get more into finance and learn more.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, when was that? That's been out for a while, right?
I have to say like 10 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that's like really stood the test of time too. Yeah, I think for people like you and I that are kind of professionally trained in finance, some of these things may seem obvious, but to people that are just getting started, there's so much information out there, and it's not always new. Maybe it's new to you, but it's no different than watching a recorded YouTube video. It doesn't have to be live to be valuable. It could be written 10, 20 years ago and still have some insights that are relevant today.
For sure.
So was there any kind of like, turning point for you that got you more interested in personal finance and being a financial coach? Or has that kind of always been a passion of yours?
So when I got into college, for some reason, it just clicked to me for some, I don't know why. I was like, you know what? I'm really just jumping into it. Like, I want to get into finance. I want to get into investing.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what now like clicked for me. Something did. I think maybe I found my major very appealing, and I want to get more into it. And I kind of like immerse myself with everything. So I think as soon as I got into college, I really took finance very seriously, like personal finance wise. Like I got into investing. I learned everything about how, like, what stocks were, what a PE ratio was, what a dividend was. I looked up to people, like before you said the mentors, like I looked up who Warren Buffett was and things like that. So I think that's when I really got into it. I think my sophomore year, so about 2-3 years ago, I think when I started the blog, I think that was when I tried to educate others, because I
Right.
think a lot of people, I think I know a decent amount, and I figure I could spread what I know to other people, help them be more informed.
Yeah, definitely. And when you teach other people, sometimes you learn stuff yourself too.
Yeah.
It's I'm glad that you mentioned kind of being in college being a turning point. And I want to circle back a little bit to when you were talking about, making a name for yourself and just getting started in your career. I think some years ago, my favorite college professor was the head of the economics department, and she actually switched to be interested in economics like well into her adult life and just went full in. And one of the best pieces of advice that she gave me that I really kind of internalized was, your degree is your degree. It's really just a signal that you can learn something and you can follow through on something. And if you change it later in life, like it'll be okay. Like you can change your mind. You don't have to just stick, just because you decided it today doesn't mean you have to stick with that forever. So, and I think that's helped me, at least in my personal career, to know like more about where I'm going, and trying to do the best for myself, even if I'm not necessarily where I want to be today. I'll do what I can to get there.
Exactly, for sure. Like you can always pivot. Like I think the dean of my business school, she told me that she was a biology major as an undergrad, and now
Yeah.
she's in business. So I think you have a long life. Like how many times have people changed their major over a 4-year span in college? Like people change their minds, and you have your whole life to do what you want. So I think
Right.
if you don't have an understanding of what you want to do, it's not the end of the world. Like things fall into place.
Yeah. Now, since you mentioned kind of like having all this time, like let's think about, getting started investing. And maybe if you could tell people, like, what's the importance of starting now
Mhm.
versus, waiting until tomorrow or a year from now?
Yeah. So I think time is the most valuable asset that anyone has. Like, I think if you ask someone who's 60 years old, would you rather have $1 billion or an extra 20 years? Rewind the clock 20 years, they would take the time. So I think
Yep.
you can't put a price tag on time, and there are many reasons for this in investing. I think the biggest reason is compound interest. I think you if you're are like around our age in our 20s and you start investing, you know, $20 here and there, it could by the time you retire at 65 years old, you could have a six-figure retirement portfolio, and it might have costed you a few $1,000s when you were 21, 22 years old. So I think if you start early, you make it very easy for yourself later on. Like, I think you don't even have to have $1 million in your account, like, or put away thousand. I think the biggest misconception is people think that, oh, I can't start investing because I don't have $10,000 to invest. You don't need
Right.
$10,000 to invest. I've broken it down before. If you put $5 away a month over the course of 40 years, you would finish with close to $30,000 in your portfolio. You would only be investing about, I think, $3,000. So
Yeah.
that's a significant return on investment with you only investing such a small amount of that portfolio. So I think time really compounds over the long term, and it allows for your small investments here and there to make a bigger difference later down the line. And I think another thing too is if you start investing early and you start implementing proper spending habits, financial habits, they become ingrained in you by the time you're 30, 40, 50. Like,
Yep.
I want to know how to invest. I want to know how to properly budget my finances when I'm only caring about myself, not when I'm 50 years old and I have three kids and a significant other.
Yeah.
So I think if you have these kinds of habits ingrained in you while you're 20, 25 years old, once you get more financial responsibilities thrown at you, you'll be able to take them with ease.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of things there that I want to like dive into a little bit deeper. Time value of money, like you mentioned, not having to have a huge lump sum. So I know, like, a lot of brokerage apps let you invest as little as $1, but people may be confused by, like, what can I buy? What can I invest in with a dollar? Um, Maybe you could elaborate on that like a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the main broker we should talk about here is Robinhood, because I think Robinhood made this a thing. So
Yep.
Robinhood really has taken off over the past 5, 6 years because they eliminated brokerage fees, they eliminated account minimums, and they offer fractional shares. So literally, you can open up a brokerage account today, invest $1, and you can own a share of any company that's publicly traded. Well, a fraction of a share is publicly traded. So
Right.
if you have $1 and you want to buy Apple stock, let's say, I think Apple stock is trading about $120 right now. You would be able to invest $1 and you get 1/120th of an Apple
Yeah.
share of stock. So someone might be like, okay, well, it's not a whole share. It isn't a whole share, but I think investing $1 is significantly better than investing $0. And
Right.
I think it allows you to, like I said, $5 a month over the span of 40 years would lead to a $30,000 portfolio. Same thing here. Like, if you invest, $5 a month, $10 a month, like, fractional shares, it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, I'm not investing enough money. You have a
Yep.
lot of if you're young, you have a lot of time on your side. It compounds over time. And you mentioned time value of money. It's also important to make your money work for you because, with inflation rates, the value of your dollar decreases year over year. So
Yep.
why put it? What's that $1, $5 a month going to do anyway? Sit in a savings account. You might as well buy that 1/10 of a share or the one
Right.
hundredth of a share of a certain stock if you really like the company.
Yeah. Maybe people need to kind of think about, we're kind of playing the long game here, right? It's not thinking 1 year, 1 month in advance or 1 year in advance. You're thinking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And you mentioned getting started young. Maybe some people watching have kids, and this is a great time to, Mark Cuban, billionaire, opened up a Robinhood account for his son and is teaching his son about investing. Like maybe he's buying, who knows what he's telling his son to buy. I wish I knew. But we can get the next generation really ahead here, stuff that maybe we weren't taught, or stuff that we're now figuring out with all the information that's online and everything that's available to us. 10 years ago, you couldn't buy a stock with your phone. It just wasn't possible. Like it is possible now. So like I feel now is the time. And that's also the reason why I wanted to start, Coast to Coast, was because there is this huge amount of new investors with access to the financial equities market with maybe little to no training. Just I'll download an app and buy some stocks. What's the worst that could happen? But there's always risk. So I think it's important people understand, like, yes, you can invest over time. Stock market has performed very, very well over time. Most financial advisors like to say past performance does not guarantee future results. But over time, there's a good chance that your money will grow if you invest it.
I think you made a point about how, there's a lot of risk for people who don't understand the market. I think that was kind of apparent with, the whole GameStop thing that happened earlier this year. We have a lot of people, like, I think Robinhood has done a fantastic thing, the whole democratizing investing, like making it as affordable as possible for people who, like, they basically allowed people to start investing that were unable to invest prior due to financial circumstances. Now, anyone can invest, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, you're opening the door for a lot of people, but you're not educating them along the way. So you have a lot of people who, I think, statistically speaking, options trading on Robinhood is 10 times greater than the next leading broker.
Wow.
And if you're financially illiterate or have no basic understanding of investing, like trading options can be very, very risky.
Yeah.
So you kind of open the door for risky trading as well. So there are people who are, yes, there are people who don't know how to invest, don't know the proper benefits of investing, and never start. But there are also those who understand there are benefits to investing, but don't know how to properly do so, but try to do it anyway. So I think it's like both parties here need to like be informed and learn the proper way to start investing.
Right. Yeah, and I will give Robinhood a little bit of credit. They have their disclaimers and try to let you know. But I mean, you hit a good point on like letting people trade options that don't really understand what they're. I'll have a real life example. My friend texted me saying, I want to trade options because I need to pull up the text. But what he said to me was like, he essentially said to me, well, you just don't lose when you trade options. You can only win. And I was like, well, I don't think that's true. But maybe don't do that. Like it was kind of baffling to me. I don't know where he was getting that information, but just for anybody listening, like you can lose money trading options. It's very possible to lose money trading options, and there's a lot of people losing money trading options. So if you don't understand options, I wouldn't recommend trading them. That's just my personal opinion.
And I think the current market environment, like you said, like it does well over time. I think we've been at like the last 2 years, even with the pandemic last year, like the market's hitting all-time highs. You basically put your money in anything, you saw a positive return. And with that being the case, like everyone's doing well in the market. So even those people who are risky and partaking in risky behavior, they're not really seeing any negative consequences from it. I think once there is some type of market correction, which there's going to be eventually, a lot of people are going to be burned. A lot of people who don't understand the consequences of their actions are going to be really harmed by it.
Yeah, I mean, it happened just a little over a year ago. With the pandemic, there is a huge. I mean, it was like close to 25% pullback, wasn't it? I can't remember the exact numbers, but I remember I was watching my retirement account just go down, down, down. It was a bad time, and for people that are close to retirement, it was very bad. situation. If the pandemic taught us anything, is that the stock market is risky. Um, but since we're talking about that, you brought up budgeting. And since I just brought up the pandemic, I kind of want to touch on budgeting and the importance of like an emergency fund. How do you go about like doing your personal budget? What kind of method do you use?
Yeah, so for me personally, there are a bunch of different ways you can do this. Like there are apps, like I think Mint is a good app. If you have if you use a credit card with a certain bank, banks have budgeting tracking tools. I personally kind of track everything informally. Like I don't have a formal pen and paper or spreadsheet budget. I just make sure that I pay myself whenever I receive a paycheck, and I immediately invest. And like I adopt a dollar cost averaging approach. Whenever I receive a paycheck, I invest a portion of my check immediately to keep myself accountable, and I'm always putting into the market. And right after that, I pay out any outstanding bills, any debts that I have, and then the rest of the money I have, I basically do whatever with. I'm in a but situations can change. This is just like that's something that works for me, and I find that very helpful.
Yeah.
Like if people have more expenses, they have to pay, then obviously you have to make the necessary changes.
Right.
I just think that I think people kind of don't want to budget because they think, oh, it's so time consuming. I have to write it on a pen and paper, or I use an Excel sheet. Who has time for that? And yeah, that is time consuming. Who wants to like open their phone every single time and like plug in numbers, see if I have enough money to spend?
Right.
Instead, I think just hold yourself accountable every 2 weeks. Put money towards your investments. Make sure you're always putting money towards your investments. Make an appropriate payment towards any debts that you have outstanding, any bills that you have, any expenses that you have. And then if you do that, there's no reason why you can't spend the rest of your money guilt-free. Like you deserve it because you made the necessary payments. You put you put yourself forward. And then in terms of the emergency fund, I think it's something that you have to set a goal for yourself where, okay, how much can I realistically save? Can I save 3 months, 6 months, 12 months worth of my salary or expenses? And then once you have a figure, I think it's unrealistic for someone to be like, yeah, I'm going to save $10,000 out of pocket right now. And it's like, that's like, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage. Like that could have been money you could have put into the market. You could have put that towards bills or other expenses. Instead, give yourself a time frame. Be like, okay, in 3-4 months, I'm going to have $10,000 saved, and then gradually save over time. I think that makes it much more realistic and much more attainable. And I think people kind of get thrown off by the fact that, hey, I have to save 6 months worth of expenses. There's no way I can do that immediately. Like that seems ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, it definitely takes time. And I mean, it's something that I didn't always have for a while, really. And I was fortunate during the pandemic where I did not lose my job. I got very lucky. I actually started a new job like a week before Chicago locked down. So I very easily could have been screwed. But at that point, I know a lot of my friends in, other less secure industries than finance, or like some people in manufacturing lost jobs with plant closures and obviously food service. That's when I really decided like, okay, I need to have some cushion here in case like I do for whatever reason. I mean, what if I got hurt and I just couldn't work for 3 months? Like, still got to pay the rent. So yeah, and it took me a little while to get there, but I got it, and now that it's there, I have a little bit more peace of mind, just kind of knowing that if a true emergency did come up, I could lean on that. And I put in a high yield savings account online, high yield at like 0.7%, but better than the 0.0 nothing I get at the other bank. And I do want to like stress to your first point to everybody, like Anthony brought up a good point. You got to pay yourself first, right? So every check, whether it's going into your 401k, your IRA, hopefully you have those invested or are paying somebody to professionally manage those funds for you. But if you put it into your brokerage account, it's paying yourself first, whether it goes to the emergency fund, your savings, whatever goal you have. And you want it to happen automatically, so you don't have to think about it. Like, Same with the 401k. It should come directly out of your check. You won't miss it. Um, and and yeah, budgeting doesn't have to be a hard thing. Like there's a common strategy of just allocating every dollar, like taking your income and subtracting all of your expenses until it's zero. And expenses could include savings and investing and bar night with your friends, like whatever it is, you just want to make sure you have every dollar accounted for. And it'll kind of open up your mind a little bit, I think.
Exactly. And
Is
I
there any
think like
like,
if you pay, I would say like if you pay yourself first, you kind of see it as an obligation, right? It's not
yeah,
seen as like an option. And by doing that, like you're like, okay, I have to invest this much of my money. I have to put this much away. And you, like I said, you always hold yourself accountable. You're always making sure you're investing into the market. And the future version of yourself is going to be very thankful that you took those initiatives to do that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm saving up to buy a house right now, and the day after my check hits the bank account, I'm transferring a certain amount of money into another account. It's gone. I can't even see it. I
Mhm.
mean, I can see it, but it's in a little bit of a less liquid state, being that it's in an online bank account. Not, it's not in my checking account. I can't go and hit my debit card and go, buy an entertainment system or something. Do you have any, like, as you've been talking to people and doing the financial coaching, like, what do you think is the biggest temptation for people to kind of stray the path, and or for you personally, either one?
I think the biggest obstacle I think people have is they don't start. Like I think it's better for someone to take the initiative. Like I know I say I put money away every single paycheck. I think it's better if someone just put $20 away and then never looked at it again than never starting it whatsoever. I think at least like you took some steps to like if you have an IRA with let's say $100 $200 in it right now and never look at it again and it's fully invested, that's a win. That's good in my eyes. Like it's better than nothing. Like there are some people who just don't want to, they think it's very complicated investing and they don't want to take the initiative to start. And by doing that, they're putting it off, they're procrastinating. They're like, okay, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next month. And then
Yeah,
when time rolls around, you're 25, 30 years old and you have little to nothing saved for your retirement or anything really.
yeah,
So I think people just need to take the step to start, whether it's, a dollar a month. I like I said, it doesn't have to be like on a constant basis, like once a year. If you want to make a contribution, I think just having something is better than nothing. I think that's a big obstacle. Something
yeah,
I've also recently noticed, like big misconception is in regards to IRAs. I've seen it on TikTok a lot. Many people think an IRA is an investment, so they never actually invest the money within the
yeah,
IRA. Like there was one guy
yeah,
who he maxed out his IRA 5 years in a row. He did not invest a single dollar of it. So he had like what was it, like $100 in interest, and it was
yeah.
peanuts. What he would have made if
Right.
he
It
invested
was
like an
basically
index
just
fund
a
or something.
savings account for him.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So biggest takeaways: you should start. Don't keep pushing it off. Even if it's a small amount, it's better than nothing. And invest your money in an IRA if you have one.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, it wasn't until maybe the last 10 years, for a few years out of college, I was struggling. I didn't really, and when I was in college, I was struggling. Like working part time. I had my own place, could barely make the rent, and like that really made me like have to budget. And I didn't get into a ton of credit card debt. I didn't live beyond my means were very low at that time. Maybe I wasn't going out to eat or like buying a bunch of clothes. It was those were my poor college days, and like yeah, looking back, I feel like I learned some valuable lessons. But I see a lot of people now getting trapped in credit card debt, and it really drowns them from really getting ahead. Um, for everybody out there, I'll give you a fun tidbit. What the credit card customer service companies call you if you pay your bill on time every month. You know what it is?
I don't.
They call you a deadbeat. you pay your credit card bill in full on time every month because they don't make any money off you. They're not charging you
Exactly.
interest. So to
They actually lose.
them, you're a deadbeat.
They actually lose money because you get they give you perks or reward points usually
Right.
if you use it properly. So
Yeah.
that's another thing.
I mean, if you think about like obviously they're a business, they're in the business of making money. Maybe they do help. I think credit cards serve a purpose, but I think people need to understand that just because you get approved for a $5,000 limit credit card doesn't mean you automatically go out and spend that $5,000. The interest rates on those. And if I was making that interest rate in the stock market every year, I'd be very, very happy.
I think another misconception with credit cards, I think now that we're on the topic, is people don't understand the interest rates. They're like, oh, like it's not that big of a deal. These interest rates are so low. They're like 30+% sometimes.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
a significant interest to pay on a loan. Like you mentioned, like the stock market return. The average return on the stock market is about 9-10%.
Yeah.
Imagine having to pay 30% interest to someone else. Like that's insane. So
Yep.
to your point, like always pay it off in full. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Like never spend more than what. Like if you have $5,000 to spend, there's no reason why you should spend all of it if you can't afford it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think people just find that out a little bit too late. So if anybody out there watching is struggling with credit card debt, there's a ton of resources online for you. We can help you out, get you started on the right path with budgeting or trying to pay off your credit card. There's like a debt snowball method that is proposed by Dave Ramsey a lot. You know, he has the hashtag debt free community on Instagram and Twitter. But cool. Well, I think we're almost at time. Anything else you want to chat about while we're on?
I don't know. You put me on the spot here.
Big goals in the next, like, what would you say your biggest goal is financially in like 3 to 5 years? And what would like have you feeling really good in 5 years?
Well, so 5 years. I'm currently going for my certification, my CPA certification in the state of New Jersey. I'm studying for that. So I would like to get that out of the way ASAP. In a 5 to 10 year window, I would hopefully have my own accounting firm or like consulting firm, financial planning. That's the end goal. Like I said, I want to, like I mentioned in the book before, like someone like me 3-4 years ago would have been like, yeah, I have to start something on my own. I'm not working for anyone right out of school. That's not the right mindset to have. I think you need to, build yourself, build a network, build your name, and then you're able to do like, even if you have the finances to start right out of school, I think you kind of have to, you need those other tools that you get in a real world environment. So I think 5 to 10 years from now, I like to have my own place, do some tax work, do some financial planning.
Nice. Well, don't forget about Coast to Coast Finance when you're way up there on the top. But no, that's a good point. I mean, there's other resources like available to you, and sometimes it's easier to just ask for help or build out those professional network. Like they say, it's cheesy, but they've said it's not what you know, it's who you know. Exactly. And it kind of is. Like if you hang out with people that are doing better than you, they're gonna lift you up. Like sometimes you can lift yourself up, yes, through like perseverance, hard work, and determination, and it will take that. But the more you sort of associate with those people that are where you want to be, they'll help you get there because they didn't get there on their own either, for the most part.
And then like another thing is like if you're fresh out of school and you try to do something on your own, like you try to provide services to someone else, and you have no experience with a reputable company or anything, clients might think, why in the world would I take your advice if you have no real world experience? You don't, like, if you have a good name on a resume or you know the right people, you have more credibility attached to your name, and that can go a long way.
Right. Yeah, for sure. All right, Anthony. Well, I will wrap it up then. So thank you so much for joining. To everybody else out there listening, viewing. If you want to check out Anthony's podcast, you can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Common Sense Finance Podcast. Also, go to the website, Common Sense Finance. You can find us on Instagram, and you can also go to the Coast to Coast Finance website. If you have questions, definitely reach out, drop some comments down below. Leave us some questions, what you want to see in future episodes.
Yep. So thank you for
Thanks,
having me.
Anthony. Have a good one.
You too.